Welcome to the Wonders of Watercolour. I'm Rae Campbell, and every week here on YouTube we provide you with free watercolour tutorials so that you can join in with us no matter what your watercolour level. So this week we're going to be painting this really beautiful bright green leaf here. Leaves are very popular on our channels. We've done a series of them, so this is part of that series, and I will link the others at the end of this video on our playlist, especially all about leaves. So as always, on this channel, we trace down the drawing before we do anything. We need a nice crisp outline. Now, I provide you with this for free. You'll have the free version right at the end of this video that looks like this. If you want a more fancy version that looks like this, then once again, you can have this for free over on our free membership level on Patreon. And you can trace it down that way as a downloadable delivered directly to your inbox. We're going to be working wet on wet, which means I'm going to apply the water exactly where I want to drop that paint in. With watercolour, it's all about applying that colour in layers, and it's important that you let each layer dry before applying the next. So I've got two greens mixed here. By the way, I will link all the materials I'm going to use in the description box underneath this video so that you can check out those materials for yourself. I am told that I talk a little bit too fast, so just to be on the safe side, you can check out the description box where you'll find all the tools that I'm using today. But I always say, please use the colours that you have. You don't have to go out and buy the same colours as me. I am using my own brushes from Craft2Mo. These are from a collaboration that I've done recently. And at the time of filming this video, we do have, I think just under half, or maybe less than half of the supplies left now. If you do want to check those out, you can, and I will link it in the description box. Let's press on with this. So I'm using my number 8 brush and I'm dipping it in the water that I've got in my little well here. The reason that I'm using this from here and not my water jar that I've got slightly out of shot there is because if I'm using my water jar, the water will run down the ferrule of the brush and cause the brush to be overloaded with water, and I don't want that. I want to have full control. I'm not doing it on the stem, I'm just going over the leaf at the moment because we need to get this base colour in. Now when you're looking at the reference photograph, again I'll give you that for free at the end and over on Patreon, and I'll also keep it on screen. But when you're looking at the reference photograph, you can see quite clearly that it's a green leaf. But when you're breaking down the colours, you will notice there are lots of different shifts in colour and tone. For example, there are lots of bluey shades and there are lots of highlights on this leaf. And it's important that we capture those in the painting to make it look nice and realistic. Straight to the pencil line with a brush. The paper that I'm using is a rough textured paper. This one's from Arches and I really like it because it takes the paint really, really well. I'm using the brush to the tip to go right up to the outside edge, and that's the area that I'm going to be dropping in the pigment in a moment. Very often I'm asked how long to wait before you drop the pigment in after you've applied this water wash. The answer is there isn't a definite answer. It depends on your climate, it depends on how warm your room is. A lot of factors can matter. Obviously if it's a colder day, then it's going to be a little bit longer. So how do you know when to drop that paint in? A lot of it comes down to practice, but you can see that when your paint is glistening a little bit too much, then it's too soon to drop it in. You're better waiting a little bit to drop that pigment in before you do anything. Also worth noting that the paper matters. If you're using a less expensive watercolour paper, which is absolutely fine by the way, you don't have to go out and buy expensive papers, but they do perform better. 100% cotton paper, the time will be a little bit quicker. But anyway, let's press on. I've got two colours mixed here. This is the kind of colour palette that I'm working with today, and I've mixed a bluey green tone here, and we've also got a more yellow version here. So this is kind of the colours that I'm looking for. The colours that I've mixed up are very watery, so that I can apply them onto our first layer here. I'm just going to add a little bit more water just to make sure that I am light enough. Dropping in the blue tones where I can obviously see that colour to begin with, and I'm avoiding the very, very bright highlights. So this blue colour here is going to go where I can see the blue tone on the leaf. So we're kind of down this outside edge. You can see how it's splurging into the water, and it's only going to be going where I've dropped that water, okay? Any really bright highlights, I can avoid them. I mean, it's not the end of the world if I drop them in because this colour is light enough anyway. We're all about making the job as easy as we can and, you know, not being too fussy. So just dropping that colour in. And then I'm going to the more greeny tone, the more yellowy greeny tone, and I'm taking this pretty much everywhere else. So because our base layers are that, we need to make sure that they're in the right place before we can build up that colour. Notice how light the colour is at this point, because all I'm doing is guiding myself where I'm going to be dropping in the darker colours later on, and this makes life a whole lot easier for me. And we all want that when we're painting, don't we? So just drop in those base colours as I'm doing here, and just kind of follow along with the areas that I'm just dropping in that paint. So this is a full-length tutorial, easy to follow steps, suitable for beginners and everybody else. So if you're new to painting and you've never painted before, you can join in with us here on the Wonders of Watercolour, because we offer a learn to paint as you paint method, and that means that I'll be showing you how to paint step by step, and as you're painting you'll be learning as you go. Okay, so it's nice and easy to follow along with no matter what your level. So I'm just going to drop that first layer on. And as watercolour dries, it does retract a little bit, so make sure that you push that paint into the pencil line as it dries. The top section here is a little bit lighter, so I'm just going to put that yellowy green tone in to start with, just so that we know where we're going. I'm only going to be using 4 colours today. These are mixed greens, where I've mixed a bluey green with a yellow in different consistencies. So we've got Dragonfly Blue there from Deep Deep Light and Mirabella from Deep Deep Light. You could use Winsor & Newton's Windsor Blue Shade, Windsor Green Blue Shade with a little bit of cadmium lemon, something like that. And I'm also going to be using Yellow Green and Hooker's Green from a brand called Mijello Mission Gold. But you don't have to use those colours, you can mix up your own colours, and I'll help you in the comments if you don't have them. I'm always on hand to help you out, by the way. If you are struggling with your colour mixing, let me know in the comment box underneath this video, and I'll be able to help you based on the colours that you've got. I'm always happy to do that for you. And it's nice to chat to you in the comments as well, so say hello if you haven't already. And just in case you didn't know, if you are new here, we do have our own private Facebook group called the Wonders of Watercolour, the same name. If you join us over there, you can post your finished paintings on our page and have some feedback from me, my team, and of course our fantastic members. We are a brilliant group. I'm immensely proud of the community that we've built over there. So you can join us there and have some feedback if that's something that appeals to you. And you can also see other people's works from our tutorials if that interests you. Once again, I will link it in the description box underneath this video. I have gone slightly outside the pencil line on this bottom section here. Okay, this is a tiny little bit there on the outside edge that I've just smudged outside the pencil line a little bit. So I'm going to use my blender brush. Again, this is from my set from Craftimo, and it has a lovely curved edge. And this means that I can get right into the corners to remove any errors or lift out any paint. So you would use this damp, so you clean it in your puddle of water and just use it to remove that error like that. Very, very easy to do. And then just pat it dry with some kitchen paper. Somebody actually called this a magic wand recently, and I absolutely agree with them. I think it's a lovely nickname for this little brush because it does sort out any problems. You can also use it to lift out any areas. If you feel that this, for example, is a little bit too heavy, where you want to lift out that highlight for later on, you can go in with this brush here. You can see how easily it just removes that paint. And there's a little bit of an area here that I wouldn't mind lifting out as well, so I can just pat that dry. Okay, it's just lifted out that, ready to paint in later on. Coming down here, you can see there's another lighter area, so just pressing that dry onto the paper and it lifts out with ease, cleaning it, patting it on my kitchen paper, and then just lifting that out. So you can see we've got these highlights now ready to place the colour over them, around them later on when this first wash dries. At the moment, I can't do anything now but to be patient and let this dry completely. It's going to take about half an hour, given the temperature of my room today. So what I'm going to do is make myself a cup of tea, and I'll be right back. So everything's dry now, we can start to think about adding some different colours. I'm going to mix 2 greens here. We've got Hooker's Green and Yellow Green. Both of these are from Mijello Mission Gold. And if you don't have these colours, you could mix something similar using something like a cadmium lemon with French ultramarine to get a nice vibrant, greeny lime green colour. And you could mix sap green with a little bit of indigo for the darker colour. Something like that. You just want them to be a different colour green, okay? So we'll start off with, this is Yellow Green, very, very strong colour. And I'm going to add to that a little bit of Hooker's Green. want to just tone it down a little bit, okay? So I would say it's 50-50 Hooker's green and yellow green. And in this section here, I'm going to just add a little less water, and we've got the Hooker's green on its own. Okay, so we've got a little bit of variation going on here. We need to get this second wash in place to make sure that we can start to build up these colours nicely. The stem of the leaf is very bright. We've got this lime green colour, so this will be a really good starting point to go over this initial wash now. Okay, so I'm just applying it straight onto the paper and then cleaning my brush in the puddle, taking off the excess on my kitchen paper, and then just blending that into the existing wash. This will add a little bit of variation, stop the colour from looking flat, and mean that you have full control of your paint. Giving it a little bit of variation with that colour there. You can see just by adding a tiny bit of that bright colour, it really makes that a lovely bright coloured green. Okay, we're just adding these layers nice and slowly. When you're looking at the middle section, that mid vein, you can see that there is that kind of bright green colour coming down. So I'm taking a little bit of this colour, just following that line a little bit there, just coming down that central vein, making sure that this is dry, of course, and bringing that line down. When we get to about this bit, it changes colour. Okay, so go back to that initial wash and pick up that bluey green tone and start to bring that down. And the bluey green tone, of course, is, I use Dragonfly Blue with a tiny bit of Mirabella. But you could use any kind of bluey green tone that you've got. As I said, something like a Winsor blue green shade or Winsor green blue shade. One of those colours, you know, would work just as well. Just put a little bit of that in, like that. Not too fussy though at this point. Okay, just coming down like that. And we've got a bit of that green tone there. Now that we've got these darker colours in place, I'm going to switch brushes and go down to my number 2 size brush because I want to have a little bit better control at this point. You can see at the top of the stem here there's a slightly darker colour. Now, just to recap, this one here is Hooker's green with a tiny bit of yellow green on its own, and Hooker's green on its own there, okay? And I'm going to be switching between these two, picking up the Hooker's green mix to start with, and I'm just going to put it on the top of this. This is still damp. You can see how that paint is now splurging into that wet paint. And then with the darker colour here, just dropping that on the outside edge. Just picking up a tiny bit with my number 2 brush. The number 2 brush, by the way, that I'm using from Craftamo, from my own set, of course, which I'm very proud of, and I love these brushes. This brush here is what I call my everyday fine point applicator. It's not the super fine point that we've got with the special brush that I'll show you in a bit, but this one is great for just your everyday kind of dropping in a different colour if you don't want to use your larger brush. And you can see I'm just using this kind of wiggly motion to create a texture on the leaf. I'm cleaning my brush in the puddle of water, patting it on the kitchen paper so that it is just damp, and then using that damp brush, starting here away from that edge, and just moving it into the paper to create a soft blur like that, okay? And then we can tackle these one by one. First of all, we're going to go to this one. I'm actually going to add a tiny bit of Dragonfly Blue to this. We're running out of space here, but we can have a little bit more of a blue tone there. And then making sure that it's dry straight up to that pencil edge. I'm going to switch between these two colours and go one by one around the veins, okay? Because we've got a lighter colour coming up here, and we'll tackle this now in sections, picking up the colours and switching them as I go. And also just a little bit of that lighter colour to the edge. So we've got a mixture of colours here, and we've got a line coming up here where that vein is. So we're going to follow that vein, taking it to the pencil edge, cleaning my brush, and then just blurring that in. Just keep an eye on where you're going and just tackle it bit by bit, section by section. To that pencil line, really easy. So that's our first line. Now what we have to do is negatively paint around that vein. So we're going to go right up to that pencil line here, where we've painted in that first line, and then very, very gently up to this line here. We're going to leave a bit of a gap because there's a space here, okay? To the outside edge. And again, follow that line. Okay, there's this line coming up here. take it to the outside edge. And then we've got this big gap here, which looks a bit strange. We'll address that in a minute. Just dropping in some of that pigment. And then cleaning my brush. And with that damp brush, we're just going to soften that edge out and push it into that negative space. Okay, so we've got a soft line there. So you can see this little gap here now. Now on this part where we lifted out that colour, it's obviously a little bit too bright at the moment, so we need to address this problem. But we can go, I think we're going to go back over here to start with. This will be the next one. You can jump around, you don't have to, you know, you can go around this line here. We have got a vein here, but I'm going to leave that and lift it out for you so you can see there's a different way of doing it. It's all about building up layers with watercolour and just working around the initial wash. So I'm applying this colour all over this section here, but not to this part here, okay? And then once I'm happy with its placement, cleaning my brush, patting it dry, and then using my brush, starting here and just wiggling that paint into that lighter area that we applied, because we want to keep that outside edge nice and light. Okay, it's obviously lighter where that highlight is, and then you're just going to push it back into that colour. Okay, just gently move that paint around. And the same for this bit, going in with your darker colour. You need to leave a little bit of a gap here. Go wider than you think you're going to need to, because that'll just give you a little bit of leeway. So straight up to that line, working around this vein here, and then bringing it down to around this section here. Okay, building it up. Cleaning my brush. Picking up a tiny bit of this colour. And for that variation, again, just taking it to the outside edge. If any of the edges are looking untidy, don't worry, we can sharpen them up a bit later. So cleaning my brush, and again, you want to soften this edge because we want this to be a nice blur. Cleaning my brush. So already you can see it's starting to take shape. Just that nice soft edge. Yeah. We'll do this one next because there's a little lip here. We're going to simplify it though. This time we can see this line kind of follows down to here. Okay, coming down, we've got this curve here. So this line kind of follows down here to this pencil line. Always go to the easy bits first. We've got a little bit of work to do on this section where we've got a lot of different switches in colour. And move around. Working it down. Remember, this is only our second layer as well. We're going to be putting other layers on top of this. And if you've got any questions, do let me know in the comments. And if you are enjoying this video, could I ask you to hit that like button? I'd really appreciate it. It is a way of letting YouTube know that you're enjoying my content and I'm doing something right. So I'd appreciate that like button there if you're enjoying it. And you may also want to consider subscribing. We do upload free content here on YouTube. And if this is something that appeals to you and you like this kind of thing, do consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the little notification bell on the side there. YouTube will let you know when I upload and you won't miss out. So whatever's left on my brush now, I'm just taking it over this area. Because colour is relative, I can now see that this lift out is too light. So we're just going to take that across and worry about this bit later. So just going to blend that in. Now at the start of this video, I mentioned that we give you a free digital version of the outline for you to trace down. It makes the job really easy for you. It's on our free Patreon. It's free to join, free to download. There's no commitment at all. But I do need to let you know that in case you're interested in botanical painting and you really want to progress to the next level, we have exclusive content over there that you won't find here on YouTube. They're in a lot more detail. And so in case that's something that interests you, let's just take a look to see what you get. When you join Patreon, you will have access to exclusive content that you just won't find here on YouTube. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just dipping your brush into botanical watercolour, you may want to join us here on Patreon, where the magic happens. And with Patreon's new collections tab, it makes accessing the tutorials super easy. When you join us here on Patreon, we dive deep into the art of botanical watercolours, from vibrant blooms to fine detail, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way. We have 3 membership levels to suit your skill and budget, and we even have a mentorship and coaching level, so if you're serious about developing your skills, then this could be the level for you. And now you can join Patreon for free, which will give you access to all of our YouTube traceables, which will be delivered weekly to your inbox, so no more scrolling through for the images. So if you are ready to embark on a watercolour adventure, unlock exclusive content and join a community that celebrates the beauty of botanicals, hit that join button, which I will link in the description. You can join and leave at any time, and of course we do have that lovely Rose mentorship level, which means that you can have one-on-one time with me via video message, as well as critique for 4 pieces a month. So check it out in the description underneath this video so that you can level up your watercolour if that's something that appeals to you. Again, cleaning my brush and just blending this out. So we're just going to make sure that there aren't any hard edges at this point. It does look a little bit disjointed, and remember that watercolour does have that ugly stage. Now the process for all of these is the same. So I've done the same thing on this section here, staying out of that lighter area. What I'm going to do is speed up the rest of it so that you can see me doing it, and then after I've done that we can come back and have a look at how we're going to build up our next layer. So I'm just going to speed this up for you, and you can watch me while listening to some lovely music. You saw me there apply the colour in the way that I have, and we are left with a rather messy looking leaf at the moment, but not to worry, it's all part of the process. So I need to change my water and clean down my palette, but before I do, I'm just going to clean my brush there and just use that damp brush just to gently blend these colours out a little bit. I'm going to use my blender brush just to soften any hard edges and lift out any areas that I feel are a little bit heavy, and then we can go in with a further wash just to tidy everything up. I'm also using this brush to tidy up any edges that might look a little bit messy as I've done that, and of course any areas that we need to lift out some of that colour. Gently pat it dry with your kitchen paper and you get that nice lift out. So any areas that you feel might be looking a little bit solid, you can start to remove them. You can also use this, by the way, to add a few more veins if you'd rather not negatively paint them. You can just wiggle that brush like that and lift out some veins, and we can paint around them later. Got a little bit of a hard edge here, so I'm just going to blend that out. Just use the water. Because this paper is really robust, it does take a little bit more agitation than your normal sort of watercolour paper. But this is why I love this paper so much. Like I said, I will link everything in the description box if you want to check it out for yourself, but you know, use what feels comfortable for you. So we've got this kind of base layer now in place with our second wash on the top. So at this point we know exactly where we're going with that colour, but we do need to make a lot of tweaks. But of course we do have to wait until it's completely dry. We can come back with our final stages of putting it all together. So I'll see you in a little bit. So in this final section, we are all about bringing everything together. We've got all our base layers in place, we've got our next layers in place, we've got our highlights ready to be brightened up. All we need to do now is put our final washes on to sharpen everything up. I've got some colours mixed out here, I've cleaned down my palette, and these are as follows. Dragonfly blue with a lot of water. We have hooker's green with dragonfly blue with a lot less water here, so we need a nice thicker consistency. And in this section we have yellow green with a tiny bit of Mirabella. Okay, so I'm using my number 8 brush. You can use whichever brush you feel comfortable. I might switch down to my number 2. I'm going to use my number 4 brush as well at some point, and as you can see, the number 4 has a much finer point. Now this is a great brush for doing your fine detail, so when we come to sharpen any edges up, it'll save us reloading the brush with paint and you can get right into those corners. But we'll jump onto that one in a minute. The important thing is to get these colours in place. So starting with my darkest colour here, and you can see the colours that I'm going to be picking up. I'm going to use this just to darken up some of the areas around the section. So just drop that on. Keep an eye at this point on where you're going with your colour, because you want this to be, actually I'm going to switch down to that number 4 size. So we'll pick up that pigment straight onto the paper. You can see the control that I get with this brush, and we're going to take it to this edge here. Once you've got that in place, same procedure, clean it, pat off the excess, and then with that damp brush you're starting to wiggle that into the other colour. If you want to add a bit more, you can pick up, if you want a little bit of variation, you can pick up another colour there. I'm just picking that up, but I want to stay out of this section because it's more of that bluey green tone that we put in to start with. I'm taking it over that vein now because I feel it's too bright, so we're just merging these colours together. Okay, we've got a slight bloom going on there, but that's okay. Looking at this one, I do feel I need to add a bit more hooker's green, so we're going to just put a little bit more of that in. Going around this vein here. So you're looking now at the darkest colours that you can see on the leaf. Bringing that line down, right up to that negative space. Working tightly around that vein. And when you feel you've gone far enough, you can sharpen up this area now, this little negative space. Same thing, clean your brush, take off the excess. You have to do that, by the way, you have to pat that dry, because if you don't do that, you're going to get a bloom. Okay, so I'm actually filming this the following day, in case you're wondering why I've got different clothes on. Okay, so for the super observant, yeah. You can see how I've just put this to take it to the outside edge. I don't feel that's dark enough, so what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of water and a little bit of pigment, but I don't want this to be too heavy, so I'm just taking a watered down version of that. And maybe a bit more water, and we're taking this to the outside edge here. Again, this is your chance to tighten up that edge. And then as we hit this section, we don't want to take it too far down, like this. Okay, same here, and again, right up to that negative space. Move this out of the way, bringing that line down. So we're going over the areas that we put in earlier on. So bring this down, because there's a shape here, just carrying on. Okay, cleaning my brush. And using that chance to pick up these colours and just enhance some of them. Nothing too fussy. You just need to get these variations in tone on. You can see the colours that I'm picking up from my palette. Remember, if you are enjoying this video, could you please hit that like button, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. It means that you don't miss any uploads. We try to upload once a week on a Tuesday. We have been doing that for the last, over the last 4 years. So if you want to join us as part of our community, do consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. By hitting the little bell that you see next to that subscribe button, it does mean that YouTube let you know so that you don't miss anything. And that's no bad thing. Okay, looking at this bit, I can see a little bit more blue. I'm going to mix another colour here. I'm going to go back to, I have got the Dragonfly Blue on its own there, but I'm going to just add that to a little bit of Hugger's Green. So we've got a kind of bluey greeny tone. So we're just adding the yellow green to that just to brighten it up. So we've got any bright green colour that you have will work fine. So I'm just going to put this on this bit. We're going to get this right up to this edge. You can see how sharp this little brush is now. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. You can see how bright this colour is, and by going right up to the outside edge, we're going to still do it in sections like this. And of course, as we come up, we've got this darker bit at the top. So I'm taking this colour right up to that edge, right up to that negative space, like that. And then I'm going to drop in this darker colour here, wet on wet. So we're charging the colour up. By charging a colour, I mean I'm adding a colour on top of a damp colour. So it's kind of like wet on wet, but with a boost of colour. So instead of adding water first, you're adding that paint and then adding another colour on top of it. It just gives it that little boost. So what you can see me doing here now is just adding that darker colour that I've mixed up. And we're just dropping it in to give that a little bit of variation, to stop this colour here from looking flat. And I'm just taking that to the outside edge, just to give it a little bit of variation. Okay, clean my brush. Same thing. So you've got this pattern now rather than a flat colour, which I think looks really nice. And again, use this opportunity if you've got a nice sharp brush like the number 4 that I'm using. These are still available on Craft2Mo if you want to check them out. I'll put the link in the description, although I think we're down to way under half. So if you are after a set, then do check them out because you won't want to miss out on these limited edition brushes. That's looking a little bit patchy, so I'm just going to take that brush. Use water to blend your colours. That's what the joy of watercolour is. This one, you can see I'm going to go to this Dragonfly Blue, putting that on there. So that's just a watered down version of Dragonfly Blue. We have talked about alternatives already, so I won't go on about that again. Taking it to this outside edge here, going to that darker value and dropping that in here. Again, using this opportunity to sharpen that outside edge. Picking up that green tone and taking it into that. So we've got a nice softer look there. Where we've got the highlight on the other side here, let's go to these again. So we've got, again, Hugger's Green. You can see the consistency of the paint now. It's a lot darker. Straight on, wet on, dry. The paint is still very movable. It's not a dry brushing technique. There's plenty of water in there to get that paint onto the paper. Okay. Once you've done that little bit, clean your brush, pat it dry, and then use that blending technique that we've done throughout the tutorial. Just like that. If you want to add a bit of brightness, use the other colour. Just going to add a bit more of that. You can take it over the veins if you want to just make them a little bit more softer. Again, picking up that colour, straight to the edge. Sharpen up your edges at this point, using the tip of that lovely sharp pointed brush. The importance is that you get this good sharp edge, so you've got this lovely contrast between the white of the paper, or the cream of the paper, and then this other colour of the bright green. And then you're coming around. We have got this sort of strange bend in the leaf here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add a bit of variation just to simplify it. And coming back down to this edge. Sharpen that up. And again, same procedure. I'm going to take my number 8 brush actually for this. And with that damp brush, I'm going to pick up a bit of that blue paint, Dragonfly Blue, because we put that highlight in to start with, but now it's looking a little bit too strong. So just let that do its thing. And that's kind of merged that together. And this one here is a kind of mixture of everything. So again, I can get a good outside edge with this tip as well. So if you're using a larger brush, try to get one that's got a lovely sort of fine tip with a nice snap, a nice spring to it. You're looking for a brush that's got a bit of body to it. So again, we're kind of just working around, getting the shape in, sharpening up that edge, and then going back to that dragonfly. So we've got a nice mixture of greens and blues, going over that highlight. We've still got that light shining through, so that's fine. Working through. Going back to that highlight colour again, picking up that. And then we've got the darker colour on the inside edge. So going back, taking this down. That's a little too dark. And then just bringing it into this side. So we've got lots of layers on here. And just taking that colour, what's left on the brush, into that inside edge there. Now it's up to you how much more detail you want to put in. If you want to sharpen up any edges, now's your chance. Just taking whatever's left on the brush to take it to that inside vein, bludge it through. And here, this colour's still damp, so we're just adding that in, just dropping it in to add a little bit of variation, like this. If you find that you've got any patchy areas, you can just blend it out with water, really, really easy. Just use that. I've gone outside the pencil line slightly there, so I'm just extending that around. And using my number 4 brush, we can start to tidy up the edges here. So remember, if you are struggling with matching your colours up, let me know in the comments underneath and I'll be able to help you match your colours up. You don't have to go out and buy any of the colours that I'm using today. I don't expect you to do that. I don't want you to do that. I want you to get used to using the colours that you have. But if you do want to take a look at them, then I will link everything I've used today underneath this video in the description box so that you can have a look, and if you want to use them yourself, then you can treat yourself with the links provided. Just blend that in and just add a bit of variation here and there. I'll also remember to stay right until the end, because I'm going to put the pencil outline of the leaf for you to trace down, along with the reference photo that I've worked from. And if you want the digital version, then you need to join the free Patreon for that, and you'll get that for free. There's no charge at all for any of this, it's all for free. So all you need to do is go over to Patreon and sign up, and you can have it delivered to your inbox whenever I upload a YouTube video that has a digital outline to accompany it, which is most of them. Okay, just looking at the middle bit, I need to just go over that a little bit because it's looking a bit too lost. And when we're looking at the little stem, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of colour and just go over certain areas with a little bit of dry brushing. Well, almost dry brushing, just to give that textured look. We don't want to put too much colour on there because it's looking nice as it is. And wherever I have left on the brush, I'm just going to sharpen up some of the lost edges like this, and then blending them through. So remember, we have got a full playlist of leaves. I know that painting leaves is a really good practice thing to do, so we have created a playlist for you, again completely free. There are quite a few videos on there now, so what I'll do is I'll put the playlist right at the end of this video, so if you stay until the end you can get the playlist, the reference photograph and the outline all for free, and so you can click through and watch those at your leisure. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. I think we can call this done. I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. If you have enjoyed it, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And like I said, I will link everything in the description box underneath this video. With that said, let's just take a moment to appreciate the finished painting, and I'll see you soon.